despite the really dark aspects of this story, you did try, and the bits I read, I think you really did, you tried, difficult as though it was, to bring out the good in Mother's life, my sister's life. And I think you can always find good, I think, in the darkest stories. It's always there. So you made an effort to find that, didn't you?
I did, yes, because what I didn't want this book to be, much as it does explore very honestly the difficult relationship that I have with my mother, and I guess I haven't kind of described what that is really. So our mother is an alcoholic. We believe that she has narcissistic personality disorder, which obviously there's a lot of research going into that nowadays, and she does fit all the criteria. She very sadly did get postnatal depression after having all of us. And I think these three things together really do make for a troubled, shall we say, maybe is a good, troubled and difficult character. Now when that person's your mother and she brings you up, that obviously, you know, makes difficulties. But when I was writing it, I didn't want it to just be, oh, you're horrible, you're awful. I didn't just want to write a book like that. I wanted to be honest. And so I did try and find the good. And I suppose the good is that, and this is maybe where we've got ours from, she does have a bloody good sense of humour, which you've also got. She'll speak to anybody, even when they don't want to speak to her. And yeah, quite a few people who had reviewed it and read it early did message me and say that despite all of it, and despite what she is and how she has hurt you and the things she's done, you clearly didn't want to just make this like a bitch fest, for want of a better word, you know. I didn't want to do that, because I don't want anyone to dislike or hate. That's not what this book's about. This book is about talking honestly about difficult relationships with mothers, which again, as I said earlier, is something that is very difficult to talk about.
No, but I'm hoping when people read the book, I don't want them to feel sorry for my sister, but I would like them to come to love it through the pages. As part of the research, the girls were asking me, particularly Louise, my recollection of my sister when we were young, to see if there was any trigger points as children that could have predicated this terrible, I'll call it a disaster for want of a better word. And I remember our childhood, and my recollection is it was very happy. We were one of these families that we didn't have a lot of money, but we didn't go without. We were very much loved, not in a huggy, I love you dearest boy way, but a very distant but strong love, particularly from Kathleen.
Yeah.
And my sister was intelligent. In fact, me and my sister were the only kids in our street that actually went to grammar school. But I thought that was because we were Catholic. And I thought all the Protestants weren't as clever, they went to secondary school. So we went to grammar school, she went to teacher training. I used to come down to Ensley to spend time with her. And she was an absolutely adorable sister. Vibrant, loving, funny, serious, liked to drink, liked to party. There was no suggestion in those early days of what might come to happen. So she was a beautiful person. And still is, just that we can't see it just now, and hopefully we will. So tell me, Louise, how hard was it? What was the journey like to get this thing published? How did that work out?
Yeah, it was a tricky one, because these days, as you'll all know, unless you're a celebrity or a royal, it's quite difficult to get a memoir published, because, you know, in order to sell a lot of copies or be of interest, it's easier if you're well known. So I knew that I'd be up against that. I hoped it would help having books published. But my publisher of my previous books, they don't publish non-fiction. So I got an agent, and she was honest with me. She said, you know, we might not be able to sell this. So weirdly, first of all, it was in audiobook. I got an audiobook deal, and it was Daffodils then. And that very rarely comes first. That's usually after it's been out in paperback. And so I kind of had accepted that maybe that was it. It would just be, you know, as an audiobook, which is fine, but I wanted to see it on the page. And then a little indie publisher called Mardle, who are wonderful, they just loved it, and they said, we'd really love to do it. We feel really passionate about it. We want to present it with care, you know, in the right way, which I think they have done. I think it's got a really lovely, tasteful cover. So yeah.
Lovely. I'll go on to the question about the Daffodil Change. How's the book been received so far? Is it, is it number one bestseller yet? Or I was in London yesterday and I went into Waterstones and asked if they had it. Your other book was in there, End of Story, and I gave this woman a really hard time for not having. I said, "Do you know who I am?" And she did. She said, "Are you Louise Beech's uncle?" I said, "Edwin, the very same." And she said, "We don't have it in." Well, I gave her some shit, I tell you. But I shouldn't have done because it hasn't been released yet. So I'm not going into Waterstones and Trafalgar Square again. So it's been received well and the reviews are good.
It has. It's probably got the highest rating, to be fair. On
Yeah.
Goodreads, it's got 4.9 out of 5. None of my books have got that higher score. The loveliest thing is the private messages that I've got, maybe
Yes.
where people don't feel they can put it out there publicly because they've got something privately to say, but I've had a lot of messages, mainly women to be fair, who have similar difficulties with their mothers, who have said, "I am so glad you've written this and you're talking about this," because they're in a similar turmoil, trying to decide what to do, whether to continue with the relationship. And some went one way, some went with the other, reading my book, some were going to carry on trying, some not so much. But they just said it's so great that somebody is writing about this topic. And yeah, they're thanking me, which is lovely.
Well, I mean, that's the power of books,
Yeah.
Extremely powerful. I think you referred to this earlier, but how did the change come about from Daffodils 18 Seconds? Because I was a bit disappointed when the title changed, to be honest.
Yeah, I do like Daffodils, I do. The audiobook was Daffodils, so when the paperback publishers bought it, they're a different company, and so they kind of technically can't use Daffodils, it's not theirs to use.
Okay.
And so they said, "What would you like to do?" We had quite a comical time picking a title, to be fair, because I'm trying to remember now, they come up with a really, really quite dark one. I think they wanted to call it, which is now just a tagline, "I've done a terrible thing." I just thought that sounds strange, "I've done a terrible thing." That's what they wanted to call it. I don't want the word terrible on the cover of my memoir. No. It's not a nice word to have.
Was that referring to you done a terrible thing or my sister?
It was because Mother said, "I've done a terrible thing" after she jumped off the bridge, and they quoted that on the cover, which is fine as a quote, but not the title.
No.
So they were fine, and they said, "Okay, what do you think?" So I had to think about it, and my favourite chapter is called 18 Seconds, and it's a very short chapter, and that's when Mother said to me, "I just wish that you could spend 18 seconds in my head and you'd know how this feels." And I just thought, well, you would know that being 18 seconds in anybody's head. If you could just be given 18 seconds in any person in this audience's head, you really would get the core of them in 18 seconds, wouldn't you? Don't worry, we're not going to do it.
I'm tuning into someone's head now. Yeah.
Is it Chloe at the back? It is, she's smiling, he's in there.
Yeah, I would never do that, honestly. Now, an intriguing question I'm sure a lot of you are asking, you may know. This small child on the front cover, is that you or is that me? Is that really you?
I think it's me. Yeah, the reason being, they do sometimes use models. I mean, my friend Madeline, who's in the audience, it's actually a model on the cover of her memoir. Why was that, Madeline, by the way? Why?
Because they asked for a photo when I was 13 and my parents really never had a camera, just a Polaroid, so it wasn't a good quality.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It does look a bit like you, though.
Yes.
They did get a lovely dark hair and the dark eyes. So yeah, sometimes it is a model on the cover, and I mean clearly she looks like a model, obviously. No wonder people would think that. Runway. I tell you what though, genuinely. I wish a model, not a plain runway. You see, my nose looks like a Concorde.
Similar.
I wish I still had them legs, to be fair, because I was very tall and thin.
Was there that day.
Yes,
Yes, I was there. I recognised the photo.
It was.
I remember where we were at Hornsey, and in the days of smoking, and I was with my, was she the first wife?
Yeah, Alison.
The first, how many have there been, reminders?
Oh, well, only 3. I was with, but Monty is my son.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I was with my first wife, and we were smoking away. Patricia was smoking.
She was pregnant whilst smoking.
Yeah.
But that's what they did then, didn't they?
So it genuinely is Louise, and there is a lovely story behind the child. So what's happened since you've written the book? It's going to be published, yeah?
It's published today. Today is
yeah.
officially the day, yeah.
So you can't do any more edits or anything like that. So you can answer questions from people tonight after this, can you?
Yeah.
If no one asks you.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, we can open it. So think up some questions.
So what is done is done.
yes, there is no time now to change anything, because somebody did ask me, would you write another one?
I'm coming to that. Excuse me. Well, as Pontius Pilate said, I have written what I have written. So Catholic, New Testament. Yeah, he said that. Because when he put the inscription above Jesus' cross, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, they should said you shouldn't call him King of the Jews. And he replied, in Latin obviously, he didn't speak English, he said, what I have written, I have written.
Do you know what's weird about that, Edwin? The last line, when you get the book, I'm sure the last line is we are written of the book.
So, just in very broad terms, what are your hopes for the book now? What sort of things would you like it to achieve?
Well, everybody wants a #1 bestseller, so, you know, click and order if you don't buy it tonight, but do buy it tonight, but then buy it tomorrow as well on Amazon as well. Leave reviews as well, by the way, because Amazon reviews matter. You know, don't you, as a writer, they matter. It's really weird. Reviews mean that the book is promoted more and presented more, so please click and review on Amazon.
But there's something deeper than that,
Of
though,
course
isn't
there is. I'm doing the fickle things first. So #1 bestseller, film. I think we want it to be a film. And we can figure out who plays us. And then John Williams can write the score. Are you going to write the script?
No, I'm playing myself.
Okay.
Tom Cruise won't get a look at me.
Well, those are the fickle things, Edwin.
Yes.
What do I want on a deeper level? Right, I want to continue what is happening where it's opening conversation and people are feeling confident enough to message me and maybe share things with me. Genuinely, some messages the women who've written to me have said, I haven't told anyone that. And you feel a bit like, wow, this person's told me something they've told no one else. And maybe it's the stranger aspect, because I do sometimes think you can tell strangers things that you wouldn't tell someone you knew, because almost it's safe with that stranger. And I mean, it isn't safe. I'm going to put it all over the internet tomorrow. Not safe at all. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, there's something about safety in telling a stranger. So I hope to continue with that. I would love to do, I did a wonderful workshop with Madeline. I keep saying Madeline, she's written an incredible memoir called Unbroken, Madeline Black. If you look that up, it's absolutely incredible. It's one of the books that inspired me to write my memoir. And we've done some amazing events together. We've done some workshops on trauma writing, because she was a therapist. So I'd love to do more of that. And do you know what's really weird? I was really thinking about this recently, and I don't know if I would. Part of me would love to train in some sort of counselling that maybe deals with the mother thing. I don't know if there is such a thing, I don't know. Or maybe start a group or start something where it's a safe place for people to talk about difficult mothers.
Oh, that would be just a wonderful thing to do.
Something that's positive that comes from the book, really.
And very doable. Yeah.
And I reckon we'd have a lot of people going.
Oh, you'd be overwhelmed. I'd be there. Are you going to go back to writing non-fiction then?
Yes, it's now non-fiction again. So this one's out, and then I've written a follow-up, hopefully, to End of Story. I'm just waiting to hear if that's the book they're going to go with. I've got a few ideas, all sorts of ideas. I don't know if I'd write non-fiction again. Depends if anything else happens. I mean, I actually hope it doesn't. I hope now we have some bloody peaceful years where life is good and there's nothing to write about. That is what I hope for. So fingers crossed that happens and you get no more non-fiction from me.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, that concludes our formal questions, and in a second we'll hand the floor over to you guys, and feel free to pass comment, ask questions, or make any comments you want. But I think what I've learned from this tonight has quite surprised me, because I didn't know what I was getting into. But I think we have here a deeply honest book, a tragic tale, very well worth reading. It might open wounds for some people here, it might not. It might give you a better understanding of a friend you have at work or at play. But I think so much to learn from this, and yeah, I will read it, but I'm going to have to be in the right place, because it is just too deeply disturbing for me. But I'd like to thank Louise for sharing these thoughts with us. She's been very open and forthright, and I'm absolutely blessed to be here with Colin and Grace and Claire and Louise all together again. When I walked into the house today, oh, it was like we'd only seen each other yesterday. So I do thank you for that, and I thank all you guys for being honest and being able to be here, knowing what's in the book. And I thank all you lovely people for coming along. And bear in mind when you're reading it, feel for us a little bit, because it's about us. But do try and see the love and the beauty in my sister through the pages, because you'll find it. But thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Please feel free to ask questions. You can just stand up and shout. I can write them on a piece of paper and not on the slate. Put your hand up, anything like that. Anyone like to ask a question?